Hello everyone. Happy Friday. Just checking to see we are now live. Please say hello down in the comment section so I know you are able to see me. Perfect. Please say hello down in. Hello. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Friday. Hopefully you're enjoying the wonderful weather that we're having here in Hoboken, New Jersey. If you are not based in Hoboken, welcome anyways, but hopefully you are having amazing weather as well. If you are watching this, be sure to say hello down in the comments. Be sure to share this on your newsfeed so that way more people can see this amazing resource today. If you have not already, please be sure to follow and like the Hoboken Public Library, which you are on right now if you are watching this live. So make sure you go and make sure you go and follow and like. Hi Topher, happy Friday, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Awesome, so we have a lot of people hopping on. This is great. So I'm going to go ahead, introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name is Kimberley Bueno Schonig, and I have partnered with the Hoboken Public Library, and we together, collaboratively, are providing you with amazing free resources to help you further your professional career, or if you have if you need any help with small business growth, you can go check our past webinars that we've provided for you for free, all about how you can start your own business and how you can grow it yourself. So today we are actually talking about how you can kind of further grow your professional career, or how you can further strengthen your professional portfolio. And today we're talking all about pursuing additional training, certifications, or education. So if you don't know yet, you are on the Hoboken Public Library's Facebook page, and we host all of our lives and webinars on their Facebook page. So if you want to see more, be sure to follow and like them on their Facebook. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the target audience, we like to talk about the target audience for these presentations, and ultimately individuals that want to progress in their career. This is going to be a great webinar for you. Individuals that have 15 to 20 plus years of experience, individuals that are interested in developing or improving their career again. So ultimately what I want to note here is kind of talk a little bit about my background and why I'm providing this information for you today. So I have experience in corporate HR, and essentially what that means, HR means human resources, if you do not know. I have experience ranging from handling recruitment to also handling terminations, performance improvement plans. So I've reviewed resumes, I've interacted with hiring managers, I've had to deal with handling offboarding, whether it's voluntary, involuntary. I've handled grievances, investigations, and performance improvement plan. And so with that being said, the Hoboken Public Library and I are actually working together to bring you as much resources to kind of help shape your professional career, so that way you can get all the tools and resources to help you find a job, help you strengthen your application. So we've done a ton of webinars about how to improve your resume, CV, how to make a cover letter, which you can all find on the Hoboken Public Library's Facebook page. They also have a YouTube, so you can go find it there as well. So with that being said, we can go ahead and get started on why you should pursue additional training, certifications, or education. I like to go over this because maybe you never thought about pursuing this. Why should you pursue? You might hear me say it a lot. Ultimately, It's a great way to improve yourself. You're increasing your skill set. You're opening yourself up to a lot more opportunity by investing in yourself, right? And you will have a stronger portfolio, and you'll be able to apply for higher title positions, or maybe you can even be part of the promotion process, right? This is all things that will be open to you just by investing in yourself and gaining more. So there's different types I'll be going over today, and the 3 types are additional training, certifications, and education. So again, if you are watching this, be sure to leave any comments or questions down in the comment section below if you have any questions at all during this time. These are the 3 we're going to talk about today. So additional training, what does that even mean? How can you take on additional training? So additional training can mean a variety of things. It could mean small leadership training offered by your company. Sometimes some companies, depending upon where you work, they offer some trainings that you can take advantage of to kind of further strengthen your skill set. Sometimes it's free depending upon if it's relevant to your job function. Sometimes you may have to pay, or maybe the company will have to pay for you to gain that training. Training could be like manager trainings to improve your skill set as a manager if you're a manager for a company. There could be public speaking trainings that you might need to do. Say, for example, if you're into marketing, maybe there's a marketing training that you can take, or maybe there's social media training that you can take. Just do some research. Now let's talk about certifications. So certifications, there's a huge ton of certifications that you can invest in. And it really just depends, again, on what your job function is, or what exactly is your end goal. So really think about where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? Do you see yourself in this job function that you are currently in the next 5 years? Maybe you are currently unemployed, and that's completely okay because you can still get a certification. Think about where you see yourself in the next 5 years right now. If you are someone who is currently unemployed, definitely do research on the type of certifications that would be relevant to your end goal. So say, for example, you are someone who is trying to reach a manager role or a manager function. You need to be able to figure out and do your own research on how you can potentially obtain that goal. And maybe you're doing research on by searching job descriptions and seeing what exactly they're looking for a manager position. And maybe you find that a lot of them have to have an MBA, which goes into our next slide. I guess we have a few more talks about certifications. So before I go into education, I do want to talk about that some roles do require certifications, and you can find this in the job description. And in the job description, depending upon where you're looking at, it will say, for example, if you are someone working in finance, there might be some series, like maybe a Series 7 or something like that, a series certification that you need to achieve in order to be able to even be qualified for the role. So just double check what the job description says, and that's a good way for you to kind of do your own internal research to figure out exactly what certifications, if any, you need to have in order to be considered a strong applicant for that role. Some certifications may require you to get tested after a few years. So what does this bullet point mean? So some certifications might be that you have to get tested annually or biannually. So you have to be mentally prepared for that and understand that maybe this is a certification that you have to continuously invest in if this is something that is relevant to the end goal that you have for yourself. So for example, if you are choosing to go into a service function and it requires you to get CPR certified, I believe some certifications might require you to either get it done biannually or maybe after every 3 years. It really just depends on the type of certification you're getting. So just do your research and just keep that in mind, because these certifications might not necessarily email you saying, oh, by the way, you need to get renewed, or maybe they do, which is great. But say, for example, they don't, you need to make sure that you are keeping up to date with your certifications. Maybe you already had a certification from 2 years ago and it expired, and maybe you still need that certification for your job function that you are trying to obtain. So just double check that you have up-to-date certifications. Now, going on to our next slide on education. Some roles you might see in their job description saying that you need to have an MBA or a JD. So obviously right now, maybe education is not something you want to look into, but if it is something you want to look into, just understand that education can be a really great tool for you to not only gain knowledge, but it allows you to open up more doors to a whole new lot of opportunities. It strengthens your professional portfolio as well. There's a lot of experiences out there that people have that is maybe just as good as yours, or even better, because they already have the educational experience. So there is a ton of opportunities and tools for you out there. There's community colleges. I would just do your research on maybe what you can find that will help you obtain that goal you're trying to achieve. Now, when it comes to education, sometimes there's different things that you can invest in that might not necessarily cost you a lot. And there's a ton of online education sources. So just do your research and make sure it's accredited by for that company, and it's like suitable for that company and appropriate. So just make sure you do your research. So education. So what ends up happening sometimes is that sometimes if you're working for a company, say for example you're currently employed, sometimes companies are willing to cover the cost of tuition depending on the type of education you're interested in. So this is really great, because what's going to end up happening, now you have to keep in mind that if you do end up taking on the company to cover the cost of your tuition, there might be some guidelines to that. So I know that some companies say that if they're going to cover the cost of tuition, they can cover up to a certain percentage, but that requires that you have to be at the company for X amount of years. And if you end up leaving the company after less than that, then you have to pay the company back for what they cover the cost of. So you just have to keep in mind that the different guidelines that are set, if they do cover the cost of tuition, because you don't want to end up having to pay the company back again, because the whole point was that they were able to cover the cost. Now, what's really great is if you are with a company that covers the cost of tuition, you're able to really kind of see exactly what your opportunities are and have a conversation with your manager. This is a great opportunity. If you don't want to have a conversation with your manager, you can have a conversation with your HRBP. If you don't know what an HRBP is, HRBP stands for Human Resources Business Partner. And basically, they're supposed to be the person that you can talk to and have confidential meetings with about your professional career. Now, they can help you, give you more information on if education is something you can even pursue, and what types of education or certifications or additional training you can invest in at the company. Just keep in mind that when you do have these conversations, it's going to trigger to them that you want to stay with the company long term. I would probably say, be authentic in how you're trying to deliver the conversation. If you don't see yourself at the company for a few years, maybe that's not a conversation you want to have with your HR, just because then it's not fair if you're having that conversation and They're giving you all these resources and information, and you don't even end up taking it in the long run. So just keep that in mind. Now, I also want to add that your HRBP can also be your go-to resource for additional opportunities in the company. So say, for example, you want to move to a different role that's completely different to what your current role is. Now, they can help you identify what exactly the skill sets they're looking for that role, because recruiters just talk to each other, right? They're typically sat near each other, or they're typically on the same floor, because HR is a huge function that encapsulates a series of different roles and functions. Now, recruiters might have the ability to talk to each other, because if they're on the same floor, what might end up happening is that your human resources business partner can go talk to the recruiter and say, hey, I have someone who's interested in this department. Is there anything I can do to kind of let them know what can strengthen their application? Now, it depends on your HRBP. It also depends on your recruiter. It also depends on the hiring manager. So I can't guarantee that this is going to happen where you can easily transfer from department to department. But that's a good use of them as your HRBP, because they are definitely supposed to be there to help advocate you and help you move forward in your professional career for that company, keep in mind. So that's just something I want to kind of note there. All right, so now I have a section here that's all about how to use these trainings, certifications, or educations for your own benefit. And what do I mean by that? Essentially, if you are someone who is currently unemployed right now, I would say having some recent certifications or training or education can actually really, really boost your application. This is an amazing way to make your application stand out, because you have taken the time to really invest in yourself and develop a set of skill set that maybe someone that you're competing with doesn't have. And if you are someone who has 15, 20 plus years of experience, this could also be another way to make your application stand out. Certifications, additional trainings, whatever you've done, definitely make sure you're noting it in your resume, because this is a great way for the recruiter to say, oh, okay, so recently you got your Series 7, or recently you got CPR certified. So that way we don't have to train you on all these things, right? A recruiter who is looking at your resume is going to only take about 6 seconds to determine if they want to either move forward with you or not move forward with you. And right now, the market is heavily saturated with people who are searching for jobs, and you're going to have to take extra measures to make yourself stand out. And maybe one of those ways is to get additional training or education, so that way it can boost your application, right? So you need to find some way to stand out, and maybe if you just make sure you read each description and it's saying like a preferred qualifications, right? Sometimes job roles say qualifications, and then it says what we're looking for, and then it says preferred qualifications, right? In the preferred qualifications, sometimes it will say certifications or education, etc. And if you're able to obtain that, whatever they're asking for in terms of their preferred, it's a great way for you to move your application up in the candidate pile, right? Because you've taken that extra step to invest in yourself to be able to hit that preferred qualification. Now, this is not to say that maybe you are someone who is applying to that job and doesn't necessarily have that education or certification, that you're immediately disqualified. I'm not saying that, because again, it just really depends on the recruiter or the hiring manager that's reviewing these resumes and what exactly they're looking for. But this is just a good way for you to really, really read the job descriptions. Again, going back to the basics of resume building, you have to constantly curate your resume to the job posting that you are applying for. So you cannot be sending the same resume to each job role. And this is something that I constantly hear from current recruiters that I know that are recruiting for roles. So keep in mind, if you are someone who is just sending the same resume to every single role, just know that is not the likelihood of you being able to move forward is going to be low, because recruiters want to see keywords, hot words. They want to see that you are curating your resume to that specific function. Now, the benefits can also be a way for you to really be able to connect with other people. Say, for example, if you're trying to get an internal referral, and if you worked really hard to get the certification, and you've noticed that someone on LinkedIn also has that certification, that's a great topic to kind of connect with that person to then lead you to an internal referral, right? That's just something I thought about that I didn't put in this bullet point, but that's a good strategy if you're trying to apply for a really hot company, or maybe you're trying to apply for a company and go through an internal referral, because again, internal referrals are pretty good, and you want to try to achieve an internal referral. If you end up going to get your education or additional training or certification, it's another way for you to network in that community, because you never know who you meet, and you never know if that's going to lead you to another open door. Now, going back to the benefits, some of the benefits, some roles do require that you have some certifications or a certain level of education to be considered. So going back to what I said earlier, you just have to double check the job description and make sure that job description is appropriate for what you are able to offer. So if you're applying to a job posting that says that you need to have a JD, you have to be realistic and understand that maybe most likely if you don't have a JD, you probably won't get that role. And there's certain reasons for this, right? So for example, there's certain things that you might not be able to do in your function unless you have that JD. Some roles need to have certain certifications and certain education, because you just won't be able to do that function unless you have that degree or certification or training. The next point I have here is, if you're applying to a role that asks you to have an MBA and you apply and do not have one, the chances of your application getting reviewed is very low. So like what I said earlier, you have to just double check the job description, right? And this goes to also for years of experience. Sometimes what ends up happening, and I've tested this myself, if you're applying to a job that obviously says that you need 15 plus years of experience, but you only have 5, you most likely won't even be able to get an interview, because they're looking for someone with doubled experience. Now, if you're someone who is currently unemployed and you have 15, 20 plus years of experience, and you're searching for a job right now, this is the opportunity where you kind of have an advantage, because there might be some roles out there that are specifically looking for someone that has 10 plus years of experience. And the reason why they're looking for someone who has 10 plus years of experience is because they are looking for someone that they do not necessarily need to train. Someone who is an entry level, they're going to need to take some time to train. That person needs to learn some skill sets, etc., etc. So if you're someone with 15, 20 plus years of experience, this is your time to really use your skills, use what you have, to your advantage, in your favor, and apply to those jobs that are asking for 10 plus years of experience or 20 plus years of experience. And this is not to discourage anyone who may not necessarily have those years of experience. You just have to be mindful about the job description, because it always goes back to making sure that your application is as strong as possible. Now, if you are wondering how to make your application as strong as possible, you can definitely go ahead and go to the Hoboken Public Library's Facebook page or YouTube page and go through all the videos that I've provided in collaboration with them on how to strengthen or improve your resume, how to position yourself to recruiters. All these different webinars that are going to help you strengthen your application as much as possible. But the biggest thing I hear from my recruiter friends is to really just curate your resume. And if you can provide as much information, first, make sure your resume is curated. Second, always include a cover letter. If you're not including a cover letter, start including one now, because it's definitely going to help you in the long run. A lot of recruiters actually don't like to see applications that don't have a cover letter. Some jobs do require a cover letter now. Some jobs keep it optional, but even if it's optional, just always include it. And if you don't know how to write a cover letter, I have a webinar on the Hoboken Public Library's page, so you can check that out. But going back to how to make your application stronger, just always have your resume and make sure it's curated. Always include a cover letter, and then if you can, follow up and find a way to connect and network, right? And also apply by adding as much supporting documents that support your experience. Because say, for example, you listen to this webinar and you choose to go down the road of taking on and investing in yourself and getting some training and certification, you can upload that certification, you can upload that additional training proof onto the application. This is a great way for you to just be like, hey, by the way, during quarantine, during my unemployment, I actually invested in myself and I furthered my skill set. And you can see the degree or the certification or the additional training proof here in the additional documents that I've uploaded, right? That's a great way for you to strengthen your application, because a lot of companies right now have either some sort of recruitment platform where you can double check your profile and see the status of where you are. Some applications even allow you to even update your profile by adding some more supporting documents. And this is a great way for you to just, hey, you completed a certification, a training, okay, make sure you add it to your profile. So that way, if a recruiter sees it, they'll be like, oh, okay, this is great. They've already taken the training. We don't have to necessarily spend extra time on them because they already know what to do. And it's always just a good way to just kind of keep yourself relevant to the job market, right? You want to stay relevant to the job market by having a stronger portfolio. I may have already mentioned this, but just going to go over it. Benefits: if you're trying to shift gears and change your career, you may need to invest in yourself to get educated, so that way you have some relevant education experience for the role. Just mentioned that. If you have to remind yourself that you're keeping with individuals that may already have the education you need to get. Okay, so this point is essentially just talking about how I would recommend to you as a candidate who may be unemployed, or maybe you're trying to shift gears and change companies, that you have to always assume that there's someone who's applying that has more experience than you or has a stronger application than you. So that way you can do what you can to research, really understand what the job role is asking you to do, and strengthen your application. So you have to kind of understand that there's this one job that you are applying to, and you may view this as one job you've applied to, but most likely there's been 100 candidates that have also applied to that role. You have to assume this. And so what are you going to do to stand out and be considered out of the 100 candidates that have applied to this role? So maybe one of the ways to do that is to make sure that you've already hit all the certifications, the training, and education to really stand out, right? And that's something that you can be able to talk about if you do get an interview, because most likely they're going to ask you, so what are you going to do in this situation if this happens? Well, you've already done the training, you've already got the certification for it, and it's fresh in your head, so you'll be able to smoothly answer these interview questions in the event that happens. All right, so where to start? Let's talk about where to start. How do you start? Well, you start today. If you haven't done or invested in yourself during this time and you feel like you're kind of stumped, do as much research as you possibly can. Research. Research is probably one of the most crucial points in getting started in finding a way to pursue additional training, certifications, and education. And like I said in the beginning of this webinar, you want to do as much research on the job posting so that way you know exactly what you need to achieve in order to move forward. And in the next point, in order to make your application stand out, right? You need to stand out. You want recruiters, you want hiring managers to spend more time on your application. And the best way to do that is by investing in yourself, right? So if you haven't started yet, don't worry. So long as you start today, that's the greatest thing. Now, the next point is figure out if your company can cover the cost of tuition for anything related to your job function. So this is for those individuals that currently are employed. If you don't know or haven't reached out to your HR team yet, make sure you do that. Just if you have an org structure, you can find it there. You can ask your manager, hey, is it possible for me to get into contact with HR? Who do I reach out to? I'm interested in further developing my skill sets. That way I can be a stronger employee at this company. And your manager, honestly, might be impressed that you're taking initiative, right? They might be super impressed that you're taking initiative. So that way, it's a great opportunity for you to be able to build that relationship with your manager, as well as strengthening your career overall. And don't forget that if you do want your company to cover the cost of tuition, just double check what the qualifications are, because I think sometimes you have to be with the company at least a year to be able to qualify. And then just double check on what exactly it means that the company does cover the cost of tuition, because I think if you have the company cover the cost of tuition, you might have to stay there for X amount of years, and maybe they only cover a percentage of the tuition and it has to be related to your job function. Sometimes there's a whole application process, approval process, so just double check. Now, my last point here is just check government resources for free resources on training or certification that you can take advantage of. So just double check your local, municipal, or maybe even federal, state government resources for free resources on how to strengthen your career, because they might be able to provide you with some free resources, so that way you can get a free certification and you'll be able to add that to your resume and your application. So just make sure you check that. So final takeaways, just really quickly: make some time to get some additional training, certification, or education to amplify and strengthen your application. This can be helpful for promotions as well, or even if you're looking for new opportunity and research. So as you know, I've said all of these already, but just to reiterate, these are the things that you want to make sure these are the things that you want to take away, so that way you can make sure you are understanding exactly why you're trying to get additional training, certification, or education, and how it can benefit you in the long run, especially if you are someone who is trying to show that you are serious about your professional career. If you're maybe just trying to find a promotion, maybe you're trying to find a new opportunity, just make sure that you are doing your research and you understand exactly what you're getting into, because the last thing I'd want is if you are actually investing in some training, certification, or education and you end up finding that it's not actually relevant to your end goal, and you've lost X amount of money for investing in yourself. That is not what I'm trying to advocate, but I do want you to understand that you need to do your research as much as you possibly can, so that way you're better suited in the long run for yourself, because that's going to be what carries you, and that's going to be what strengthens you as an individual in the workforce, right? Make yourself unique. Awesome. So I think that is it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this webinar. I'm now going to leave it open for any questions or any concerns. If I'm quiet, I'm just looking to see if there are any questions here in the comment section. I'm going to give it a few minutes just to see if anyone has any questions. If not, then I'll just close. All right, if we don't have any questions, I just want to say thank you so much to the Hoboken Public Library for having me. Thank you so much to everyone that's hopped on today. And thank you so much to all those that are watching the replay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And don't forget, you'll be able to see me next week. We still have next week on Friday at 1 p.m. And then looky here, we also have been approved for September. So it seems like you guys are enjoying these professional career development webinars. So make sure you send an email to the Hoboken Public Library and let them know you are enjoying these webinars, and let them know you want to see more. We are working really, really hard to make sure we're bringing you amazing free resources, so that way you can make sure you're developing your career and your professional portfolio. And again, if you have any other topics that you want us to talk about, please let us know, so that way we can make sure we are developing and curating a webinar that answers your questions. So I'll see you next week, and hope you have a good rest of your Friday. Bye.